Hello and welcome to another Red9 demo. Today we're going to be going through more updates that we've done to the Red9 PuppetRig. This is the rig that we build as a client service. The updates are some of them are based on some of the nodes that Autodesk have been putting into Maya over the last few releases that we've now adopted. And then some of them are internal updates and also a new patch. So what I'm going to show you first is we're going to go through the finger patch. Now this was written quite a few years ago for a client, and it's one of these things that we kind of tell people but we've never really shown in action, so we wanted to go through that first. What you see here is we've got the animation UI, the animation toolkit here, and in this animation toolkit, let's just open that, excuse me, we've got a library of finger poses. Now the first thing is that when you make rigs, when we build rigs for clients, it includes markers on all of the systems that say how we mirror things. So we've got little IDs that say I'm index 1, 2, 3, whatever it happens to be. And if we select these and we select a node in the rig, you'll find, if we have the attribute editor up, down the bottom, in the extra attributes, we've got a mirror index. Now that's really important because what happens is that, I'll show you how to do this in a second, but when we add the mirror indexes, slot 36 will relate to the same slot on the other side, whichever finger it was, 33, that one wasn't it, 32, I can't remember, 36, there we go. So the left pinky obviously relates to the right pinky, and that's really important because the way that the finger pose system works is that it uses the IDs. First thing you need to do is you need to actually make a folder for fingers. The reason for that is that by default the pose saver will save whatever it's told by the hierarchy control, and the hierarchy control in this case is it's a meta rig, therefore it will save the entire meta rig. Well, that's no use for fingers. We want a left finger pose to be able to transfer over to the right finger pose. So you actually have to tell it that it needs a finger pose library. And we do that by right clicking, and you'll find two down here. The first one is this one, which is the one we're going to use, fingered mirrored ID, and that basically relates to what I've just shown you, where that has ID 36 and the same joint on the same side has ID 36, and it's left and right, and that's how we navigate through the poses. The other one, finger, that relies purely on the hierarchy structures. So if your hierarchy structures of the joints are exactly the same, that will still work. But the IDs are a better way of doing it because you can have subnodes in it, you can mess around with stuff. So that's the one we usually use. I'm not going to make the folder because lo and behold I've already got one, so I'll pick the Red9 finger folder and this is it. So these are finger poses, and it's really easy to use because basically everything has an index, everything knows the side, and all I have to do is I have to select something on the side that we're talking about to be able to load the pose. So I'm going to load that one onto that side, I select, might be the wrist, and I'll load that pose onto that side. So it knows that by selecting any controller in the system, it goes, I'm a left system, therefore I must be working on the left fingers, therefore that's the side that I will load this data to. Obviously we have hierarchy, so if we had hierarchy off and we selected joints, it would load just those components. You'll notice also that if let me just load the base, you'll notice also that there is a blend pose now. Blend pose always used to be right just there. It's now a component on its own right, so if we go, we'll select something on this side, we'll go blend pose, and that will blend in that finger pose. You can see it's spinning that up quite nicely. Oops, you see it's spinning that in quite nicely there. And again, this will work on selected as well. So that's a really nice way of doing it. But now we've got a library of finger poses. The benefit of that and the new stuff that's gone into the publishing system is that we can expose these as a patch. So when we build the rigs are built in multiple stages. We have the component build, which is our internal system. We have what we call the SRC, which is the deformation side character file from the client, and we have the publish, which goes through an enormous internal publisher that verifies the rig and wires it up and patches it, etc., etc. And one of the patches that we've now exposed is the finger patch. And what the finger patch does, you'll notice that we have min, max, so we've got spread and bend. We're going to ignore the relax because I've told it to ignore that when I did this. So we've got min and max, so that's our, select something on the side, that's our max and that's our min, okay? Now what happens is that when the publisher hits it and it finds these poses and we tell it to run the patch will then consume these poses and it will add them to our switch control in the rig. So these poses here actually all came from these four pose files. So min, max on the spread. If we go, lo and behold, let's just reset the character, reset finger system, zero finger system. Excuse me, toggle fingers, select the fingers, zero fingers. Okay, So if we select the switch, you'll see these poses. So there's our bend max, there's our bend min, which relates directly to these two poses. It's also split them, so you'll notice that it's split them per finger, so we can do the bend per finger, okay, which is really useful. Now then, why would you want to do this? Well, A, it gives you key poses, a few fingers in the rig, which means it's a lot easier to target these key poses. But if you think about it in terms of game animation, if you have a pose that might be gun grip, okay, that might be a master pose for gun grip for the entirety of your game for this particular character. Now, let's say 6 months into production, the character art decides that actually the gun's got a wider grip and you need to adjust all of your poses. Well, that'd be really difficult if you'd actually keyed these as joints. But all you'd really need to do here is resubmit to us an updated grip pose. We republish the rig. As long as you've used that channel as that grip, all your animations will then update the minute you load them. So it's a way of kind of foolproofing yourself for future work as well, and it's a really cool thing to be able to do. So that's a new patch that's gone in for the fingers. While we're on the fingers, one thing we have hooked into is all FK joints now use the default manipulator. Again, this is something that's been in there for donkey's years. We've never really hooked into it, but we did a bit of an update on all of the systems and thought we'd do it because it's quite nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops, let's do that. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to select all 4 fingers. Now then, usually what you do is you turn the rotate manipulator on, and you get that. In fact, let's just get rid of the metacarpal. We don't really want that in this. 1, 2, 3, 3. Okay, so we've got 3 joints selected, and you get a bend. But if you actually want to pose these things really nicely, what you can do, so you've got W, which is translate, E, which is rotate, S is scale, T is default manipulator, and we've now enabled these on the rigs. So you've got the default manipulator, and what I can now do is I can just, you can see I'm not reselecting stuff, I'm literally just posing it as I go along with each one of those manipulators, because it's a separate manipulator per controller. Okay, so that's a really nice fast way of interacting with the rig systems, and that's on all the FK systems now. Something else we've put in is we've started utilising the new controller node in Maya. Again, this came in 16.5, I think it is. It's something we've had on the radar to hook into, but we finally hooked into it and it works really well. So pickwalking, the rig has always been able to pickwalk up and down FK chains, which is great. The difficulty with this, and the reason we've added it, is that when we do the finger poses, we have to insert additional nodes to obviously drive those SDK poses, and that then breaks pickwalking. So we thought we'd investigate. So this is the new solution. This is running the controller tags, and all I'm doing is I'm walking up and down using the up and down arrows on my keyboard, okay? Which is great, you know, that's fairly standard behavior. But what I can do is if I go sideways, I can walk across the siblings now. Bear in mind the structures are completely benign, you know, they're all over the place in terms of actually being able to do this natively. But with the controller tag, we can move up and down and move around. And in fact, if we open up, if we open up the Red9 Picker, you'll see there's the feedback of where we are. And if I literally just walk round, you can see I'm walking round, across, up, and it's reflected in the picker what joint I've selected. So that's really nice as a way of interacting with systems. The other thing this does, let's just put that back into IK mode, is that when we have a system selected, when I walk up, I'm walking up the controllers in that system now. This is nothing to do with the character picker, it's just the fact that it looks quite nice in the character picker, obviously. But I'm now walking up and down those systems, and it's with every system. Every system walks itself. So the spine goes from the chest to the mid controller to the cog, back to the hips. I walk up and down, the legs obviously go up to the hips, obviously go up to the hips, or they come down to the foot, etc., and the head just goes around the 3 head controllers we've got. So again, as a way of interfacing with the rig and communicating with the rig, it's actually really nice. And that is literally just those arrow keys on the keyboard walking around the systems. It's not a custom pickwalk code, it's just using native Maya but using those new controller tag nodes. We've never really actually said much about the picker. The picker we're going to do a whole demo on. These things just reflect whether we're in FK and IK, and this is just whether we're in local or world space for the FK system. So the picker we will do a big demo on when we get round to it. Let me just close that down, and we'll close that one down. And then the other thing that's come in is along the side of this, because we've added these new nodes in, if I right click on any system in the rig and we'll come down, we've got a new option called proximity visibility. Okay, and if we click that, you'll see everything disappears. Well, that's great. I can't see anything, except if you move the mouse over it, you'll see that the controllers come based on the mouse proximity. Let's just change the screen. That's probably better. Can you see that? Hopefully a little bit better. I'll just get rid of that. So this is proximity selection. So I'm selecting based on where my mouse is. And obviously, you know, if I'm posing this and I want to do my pose, however I'm going to do it, you'll see all the controllers, you'll see the manipulator. But if you actually want to see it cleanly, you just move your mouse away from it, and that's keeps it really clean. So you've got literally nothing on the rig until you come over it, and they all get turned back on. And again, you want to toggle it, you just come down and you go proximity toggle. So again, that's been turned on, and that's all part of adopting some of the new stuff that's coming through some of the nodes in Autodesk. The right-click menu, this DAG menu, this has always been on our custom rigs. We've gone through quite a few of these in the past. One thing we haven't gone through is that we haven't gone through the Locomotion Tracker. And again, this is another thing that came in fairly recently, I should say. But for this, what we need is a bit of animation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select anything on the rig, and I'm going to load an R9 anim, and I'm not going to use the R9 anim interface because I don't need to anymore. This is kind of for when you really want finite control, but it's all now in the file menu. We've got two options: load direct. Load direct will look in the R9 anim. If the R9 anim was built on a file that had a reference rig, it will load the rig directly. It will re-reference the rig, and then it'll drop the animation onto it. If the rig is already in the scene, I can use this one, import R9 anim to current rig, and I'll just drop that one onto it, load, in it comes. That'll be that thing. You'll also notice an audio came in because this runs all of the options by default that are in here, which includes this pre-post load stuff, which is dealing with audio data that was in the scene. That's by the by, we're not really interested in that at the moment, but that's kind of useful. But that's a really useful new feature that's come in to be able to load anims directly into the rig itself, and obviously pick rigs within the scene that you're working on. But what I want to show is this thing. So if we cut keys on selected, yes, go away. Okay, so we've got character walking. This is directly aimed for games. Where can we see? We can see it there. That's probably better, isn't it? And we've got the locomotion controller. The locomotion controller is the root of all for the game rig. It's your locomotion joint, your head of the hierarchy. And if we right-click on it, we have got a number of different ways of automatically tracking. We have static tracks, so we can do a static, which will just put it. Basically, what it does is it projects from the hips downward to the world plane and orients in the direction that the character's facing. But that's just a static, and it doesn't do any keys. It literally just plonks it in the place. We've got translation. We've got projected translation, which will just do that. It just projects it straight down, but you get this random kick in the back because it's trying to just project down from the cog. It doesn't actually project it onto the world ground plane. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use that one, which is kind of the one that is always going to be used, to be perfectly honest, which is a translation rotation. So we'll do that. And what that will do is it will project it down to the world plane, zero the rotates except for the direction data. So you can see that's tracking really nicely against the world plane, and it's literally just a case of click, drag, whoops, and do it. This one, by the way, the linear, let's just get rid of that. You'll notice that when we did this, obviously it's a key per frame. The track linear basically will do everything, but it will only include the first and the last frames. So again, if you've got game animations where it has to be a linear translation and the data inside the animation, shouldn't really track, it's just a first and last frame track. The other ones, these will track directly. So as the character goes up and down, it will go up and down. It won't project it to the world ground plane. So again, they went in recently, and they're quite useful. Obviously, we've got all the pose stuff that's in this setup. Again, we've kind of touched on that in the past, but as a really quick demo, if I go cache the current pose, which is this crouch down strange pose, I come over there, right click, I can load it as cached, which is where it was over there, but he's already walking there, so I want to load it against where his hips currently are at this point in the world space. So I can go load cache relative, bosh, and down he goes. So again, there are tons of ways of interfacing with the Red9 PuppetRig. Loads of ways of doing it. Loads of really nice things to keep the interface clean, to keep the animators work a lot simpler. This stuff is really cool. The Pickwalking is really nice. The hand stuff that we put in really helps. We're just trying to kind of keep updated and make sure everybody benefits from what we put in. So thanks very much for watching. If you've got any questions, fire us an email. Always good to hear from you studios. Thanks very much. Bye.